That was the that was the goal to really appeal to people who love the show.
Awesome. That's what we'd love to hear. That fans and scholars, I understand, are embracing the new book.
Yeah, I have heard from again fans and writers of the show, which is incredibly validating because these are like the funniest people on earth.
Nice. So our guest today is senior staff writer for The Ringer. He's releasing a new book offering unparalleled look at the making of The Simpsons during the most influential decade, the 1990s. Our guest today is Alan Siegel. We'll be discussing his new book, Stupid TV, Be More Funny, How the Golden Era of The Simpsons Changed Television and America Forever. And I agree with you 100%. I mean, gosh, the impact, the legacy that The Simpsons have had and continue to have on television is unparalleled.
Yeah, like what is true Simpsons, the influence of the Simpsons, and you could say any adult animation that's out there is from the Simpsons. You could say that any sitcom that has hundreds of jokes an episode is influenced by the Simpsons. But I really think it kind of gave me a worldview, and I think that that's an underrated part of the show. Like the show could be cynical, but also it could be very optimistic, and that sort of I think sums up what made the show great.
I'm thinking, in my opinion, there are two things that can say they have the biggest influence on pop culture. And obviously, you pick The Simpsons, so you think very highly of that one, and you think that one's the correct one, and it probably is. I would say,
Now it's gone on for 35 years, right? So
mhm.
the since then the edges have sort of been sanded off. Like it's an American institution now, but in the early days it was really considered kind of dangerous, and I think that has been forgotten to time.
Definitely. Exactly. Yeah. At times, shoot, that was the wild, the crazy show, we gotta keep the kids from watching it. But now there's so many other shows that have Simpsons have influenced that have kind of taken that mantle, it feels like.
Yeah, for sure. Like I have a friend who talked about how his kid watched South Park, and South Park like it's a great show, but it's just like a little more adult. Like there's cursing, there's like dirtier jokes. And then he went and watched The Simpsons for the first time, and it didn't feel as sort of dangerous to him, and he didn't like it as much. And I think, whereas I was the reverse, I sort of graduated from The Simpsons to these other shows.
You're preaching to the choir. Exactly. You've been there for the whole evolution of it to see how it's changed, evolved, and progressed over the years.
Yeah, that's the people forget again is that when we reference The Simpsons now, I would say it's mostly the first 10 years, and that's really what I wanted to focus on. I have always wanted to write a book about The Simpsons, at least as an adult. I'm 42 now, and I couldn't quite get the idea right. But I think what did it was really drilling down on the beginning, which is what made the show special.
I can't remember where I heard this from on YouTube about a week or so ago, but they were interviewing somebody that had been a big part of The Simpsons, and they said that early on that they had a deal with Fox where it was like no notes. Uh, Obviously, the censors could give notes, but the studio could not.
And you're right, so that was at the time he was like a red hot producer director. He had made broadcast news, Terms of Endearment, Mary Tyler Moore Show, and because he knew that Fox at the time was really like a nothing network. So he knew he could sort of negotiate with them and get what he wanted. And one of the notes, or rather, one of the suggestions or needs that for making The Simpsons was no creative interference by the network. And that was almost unprecedented at the time. And what that did was gave the writers like so much more time to focus on making the show because they didn't really have to address the notes, and that was just a time suck. And like that, it sort of it was invaluable to making the show great.
So, with that, if there was no Simpsons, would there be a Fox network today?
I think it's arguable. by that, but The Simpsons is the show that legitimized Fox, right? So they made so much money, they gave it cultural cachet, and you put those together and it like helped create a juggernaut. I don't know that anyone could argue otherwise.
Definitely. However, I feel some flowers do need to be given to, say, like Married with Children, because obviously The Simpsons had a bigger overall impact, but they definitely factor into the equation.
Yeah, I mean, it was very funny and it was a satire, right? So, but the thing about that show was it didn't really appeal to kids, and having that and The Simpsons together, and then like when In Living Color started, which is a variety show, like that hit all these demographics.
And that is awesome that you point out In Living Color, because I think the only thing that could possibly argue that they're up there with The Simpsons for pop culture influence would be the rival of In Living Color, Saturday Night Live. But just like The Simpsons, over time, they've kind of changed and evolved.
Visionary at the time, right? And they have these legacies, but for both, it's sort of like that. Those early years are what made it what it is, sort of in the terms of, rather in the eyes of the public, right? So, yeah, I mean, you could easily argue that the two most influential shows in the history of TV are SNL and Simpsons, especially to comedy.
Which is it's funny because a lot of the people that have worked on both, or a lot of them have, done crossovers and collaborated on those things.
Yeah, writers started at SNL, and a lot of them sort of got disillusioned because it was incredibly competitive to get your own material on the air. But The Simpsons was different because it was sort of more of a team effort. Every episode, the writers would workshop and rewrite together, which really made it different than SNL, where you were sort of trying to elbow everybody else out.
Are the Simpsons the same characters that were originally on the Tracey Ullman Show? And I know that the names are the same, but how different are, or how different is Homer from that Homer?
So Homer was at the time sort of doing a more Walter Matthau voice, just like this really gruff, kind of oafish, like Oscar Madison type. But that eventually started hurting his voice, and Homer sort of became a lighter, like more airheaded character instead of just like a stern dad. And like for example, like Lisa at the time was basically just a girl version of Bart, and she became like much more evolved by the first season of the show.
So, do you feel that Jerk A. Homer has hurt the show, helped the show, or indifferent?
So basically, then Homer over time sort of became dumber and meaner, and the dumber part I don't think hurt the show, but Homer getting meaner for a while, I think they've really cut back on that and pulled back. It just sort of gave some of the episodes like a more of a mean spirited feel, which yeah, it wasn't great for the show. But again, I think that they've really dialed that back some.
It's just amazing, all the people that have been influenced and have been a part of The Simpsons. What do you feel? Do you feel that the Treehouse of Horror is their best thing they do, or is there something even better than that?
Example of what they could do that no other show could, right? So the first Treehouse of Horror was an anthology, and one of the segments was a reading of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Like imagine Family Ties doing that. Like they just couldn't do it. So it was a great example of the kind of thing that they were really ambitious about, which was doing something different. And the format was different. And like again, like I said, I don't know if it's the best, but it might be the most creative thing that they ever started. I mean, it's a tradition.
Nice. Alan, it has been a pleasure having you on the show today. We are excited about your new book, Stupid TV Be More Funny. How the Golden Era, The Simpsons changed television and America forever. Where on social media, where on the web, where can we find out more about you? And of course, The Ringer.
Yeah, so you can find my work at theringer.com, and I am on all the social platforms at Alan Siegel, AlanSiegel, LA.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Alan. It has been a pleasure having you on.
Thanks for having me.
It has been a pleasure talking with Alan Siegel all about The Simpsons. He's a great writer for The Ringer, and it is just insightful. It sounds like it's going to be an amazing book and that you should definitely check it out.